this person had said, and this is a very vulnerable question.
Hmm.
They said, I was sexually abused / raped by my husband,
Hmm.
who has since changed and apologized. Is it possible for me to ever find enjoyment with him sexually?
Mm, yeah, man, very vulnerable.
Yeah, absolutely.
My heart kind of breaks with you and the pain of what you guys have experienced and gone through within your relationship. And I'm glad to hear that you're in a different place today. Glad to hear that you guys have kind of navigated, um, and that that's not a part of your relationship anymore. But having things change uh, in the future or in the present and going forward doesn't automatically heal the wounding that you've experienced already in the relationship. And our sexual part of our relationship and our is such a violation of our body in such a deep way that the wounding there is significant. And so that can't just be brushed under the rug or kind of skated by with, I'm sorry, I won't do that anymore. That there's a need to make sure that that is processed through to healing and completion. And if it is continuing to be an obstacle for you guys in your marriage and your relationship, then that's a proof positive that we've not processed all the way through that. That it's going to keep showing up and keep being a hindrance for us until we grieve through the loss that's involved in that, and take steps to restore trust in a way that enables us to be vulnerable. And in a situation like that, it's going to be very difficult to navigate that on your own. That there's such an emotionally charged dynamic and such a vulnerable component to it that without someone to help navigate you guys through that, my experience is that couples really get stuck there. And the longer that dynamic goes on, the deeper that hole gets, the worse the divide is, and the more the disconnect is between the two of you. So it makes it harder to repair. So I would strongly encourage you to connect with a professional counselor that's familiar with sex therapy and sexual difficulties and can help you work through the trauma of that in a way that can repair that in your relationship and help you guys be able to kind of have the connection that you really want and really long for.
Yeah, yeah, that's really hard. I really can't imagine being in a situation like that. That's difficult, and I appreciate the question and just the vulnerability in asking it.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, that's hard. Josh, can you kind of help me understand um, just sort of how one can change and move on from that? If her husband, raped her, how did he change and move on from that? Can that even really happen? Can you just sort of help me understand that more?
Sure. Yeah, it can be really difficult getting in the shoes of someone or something that you haven't experienced before. And a lot of times it can even be difficult to put the language around it that she has in the situation. And so it seems like there's been some kind of work in being able to use that. But the feeling of violation that we would associate with rape is really any kind of dynamic where we are engaging sexually in a way that leaves us feeling really uncomfortable and not what we would prefer, not what we want to choose kind of for ourselves. And so there's a lot that's a broad umbrella and a lot that can happen underneath that. But one of the kind of common things that I would see or experience is in a situation where a wife is having maybe some difficulty in the sexual desire or sexual relationship department, and a husband is feeling rejected, feeling unwanted, feeling frustrated with that, and is by way of out of that feeling creating a sense of pressure that's either overtly communicated or is just implicit in the relationship, and that he's frustrated, he's angry, and feeling that hurt. And a lot of times men will show up with anger when they feel hurt. It's not helpful, it's just a thing that happens. And from that, why feeling pressured to engage sexually, even though her heart's not there or isn't open to that, doesn't really want that. but maybe feels like it's her duty or it's what she's supposed to do or engage, or maybe she gets that message in her upbringing, some bad instructions around sexuality that says, in its most offensive to me and frustrating presentations, where the scriptures are used in some way to say, hey, your body's not your own, and you're supposed to do this, what God wants you to do. And so there's a kind of pressure, forcing of engaging sexually in ways that wife feels violating to her under those circumstances. And so it's a broken dynamic. It's an unhealthy dynamic, but it's definitely one that a man can feel kind of in his own immaturity and brokenness justified in at some point in time, but experience conviction around and come to truth and realization of what a violation that is of his wife, and what a distortion that is of the scriptures, and have a heart change around that, and be earnest about wanting to repair the foolish choices that were made at an earlier stage in their relationship.